Hello and welcome back. So this is the third video related to the same topic of families and how the relationships are changing. In this video we are going to look at the relationship between the family and the state. Alright, so governments both support the family generally, and in some instances they actively support certain family structures and roles and responsibilities, right? So normally it is a little difficult to conceptualize how the government gets involved in determining the family structure, but in many countries the governments are actively involved, and the state is very actively involved by putting down certain guidelines, and these guidelines mainly fall in three categories. Number one, the governments can set down legal norms. They can set down legal framework of how marriages will be contracted and how families will be constructed. So like in India recently, the government banned the triple talaq, the three times when it said talaq, and they have banned divorce along those lines. So this is a legal stipulation that the government has made. Then the government can also put down moral guidelines, right, as to what is the best way of sustaining the family. What do men have to do in order to sustain their families? What do women have to do in order to sustain their families? So the governments can do that. And of course the families are always influenced by the ideology of the state. Sometimes when the state is very strong, the ideology is so strong that the families are influenced by that. Nazi Germany is a classic example where Hitler's ideology was adopted by the family, and the family members were raising, the parents were raising their children in accordance with the Nazi ideology. So sometimes the state becomes very, very powerful. And here we have the concept of what is called the managerial state. The state tries to manage the development of family groups, sometimes subtly, sometimes very directly. So, and the job of the state here is to set behavioral boundaries by encouraging certain forms of behavior. So the state will now come in and it's going to encourage certain behavior and discourage other kind of behavior. The state, for example, may take an active role in encouraging marriages. All right, it may take an active role in doing family planning, as in China. So that is called the coercive state. The state is managing and it's also coercive. Where in China they said you should have only one child. Now this is a state which is forcing the family, coercing the family into making sure that they have only one child in order to keep the population of China in check. All right, and here we have a development which needs to be appreciated and which you need to understand, and that is the development of what is of the new right. It's called the new right, and this developed mainly in the United States. So before we discuss the new right, we need to understand what the right means. All right, so thinkers are divided into social thinkers, political thinkers. They are divided into two extremes. One are called the right wingers and the others are called the left wingers, right? So where does the term right winger and left winger come from? Let me give you a little background. After the French Revolution, when the kings were deposed, the French sat in an assembly, and the assembly continued till the year 1799. Now the French people, they were sitting in assembly, there were no kings, and now for the first time in this assembly they used to decide how the country was to be run. Interestingly, that assembly was also called the National Assembly. Just as the National Assembly of Pakistan, the term National Assembly has been borrowed from the French National Assembly. So the assembly was divided into two sides, two wings. On the right side, the people who used to sit on the right side they were largely conservatives. They did not want a lot of change, all right, and they were broadly supportive of those institutions which existed in the times of the kings. These were called the right wingers. They were conservatives. And on the left side of the assembly, there were people who were more interested in change and interested in reform and interested in new institutions. So in 1799, after 1799, the assembly did not exist, but the terms stuck. So even today, the right wingers are those people who hold that certain social orders and hierarchies are natural, and because they are natural, they cannot be removed. They may be old, they may be considered anachronisms, but they cannot be removed. These are conservatives, and they are very wary about changing or finishing what exists. So these are conservatives. The left-wing socialists or the left-wing politicians are those who support social equality, and they are opposed to old institutions. All right. So this is so America and the Western world were largely egalitarian. They were largely open societies. They were societies where reform was welcomed. This was society where equality between people, social equality between people was encouraged. All right. But in 1980s, things started to change very wildly, especially in the United States, where a new group of politicians was born, and a new group of thinkers was born, and a new group of social scientists was born, and they were called, together, they were called the New Right. The New Right, all right, they argued, and I'm just speaking right now in the context of the family, they argued to support, to create a supportive structure that would support families in performing their human development and caretaker functions. So this is, now they are coming in and they are saying, wait a minute, we have way too many single parent households. That does not create very good members of society in the long run. So we need to support the families, and we need to go back to the traditional definition of the family. So there are two researchers here whose research will come in handy when you are writing the answer. One is Ekner, and of course he's American because this all happened in America, and he specifically argued for the supportive state which will support the family. And then there's Neil, he wrote in 2000, and he notes that stable family relationships are created within married, heterosexual, dual parent, nuclear families. So the New Right comes in stridently in favor of marriage, and normally marriage, not normally, but for the New Right, marriage is union between a man and a woman, not a man and a man or a woman and a woman. They believe in heterosexual homes, nuclear families, and not single parents but dual parents. So this is the movement, and in its more extreme form, the single parent household is considered immoral. Why is it immoral? Because it creates dysfunctional families. It creates families where children are frustrated and they turn to crime, and they are not able to support themselves when they grow up, so they will depend on state welfare. And the right wing is not interested in welfare, because if you increase welfare, you have to increase the tax. If you increase the tax, that is going to hit the wealth of the conservatives, and it's also going to bring about less economic growth. So no welfare, but in order to eliminate welfare, they go back and work on the basics. They say, all right, we will not give welfare, but we want a family that gives all the welfare to the children. So the state will support two parent family, dual parent family, which is married, they live together, they are not in favor of cohabitation, they believe in the traditional marriage, and they believe that this is a union between a man and a woman. So this is about the new right. We will continue with this, and in the next video I'm going to discuss it further. Thank you very much.